Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome President of Arizona State University, Michael Crow.
It's my life, it's now or never.
A few of you could wake up. It's really fantastic. So I'm going to do some unusual things today. I'm not going to give an update on ASU. I'll just say things are going great at ASU. What I want to try to do today is change the dialogue just a little bit. I want to actually put something on the table, which is what would be the actual innovations that we need. Not just those that are coming from inventiveness, not just those that are coming from great ideas and so forth, but what's actually needed. But to do that, we've got to learn a couple lessons today. We've got to learn a lesson about why it is that the predictors of the doom of higher education were wrong, that colleges were going to cease to exist, wrong, that somehow we were at the disruptive edge of some innovation pattern that was going to lead to the annihilation of institutions that have been in place for 1,000 years, wrong. And so there's a lot more to it than that. And so let's take a look at, by the way, if you want to take a look at the close slides up close and pull them onto your iPad or your computer, you can go to this website and find it right there. But what I want to try to do, it's not all the words here, it's not about all of that. I want to make one point. At the heart of everything that we do in education, at the basis of everything that we do in education, must be this notion of knowledge, knowledge creation, the advancement of human knowledge, the creation, the discovery, the understanding. How does nature work? How do we work? What are ideas? Who are we? Who are humans? How do humans evolve? How do we think? Why do we think that way? If we stop and consider everything related to education to be a commodity, everything to be just a process, nothing but finding a way to get a book to someone or a transaction here or there, we will, in the long run, fail in our process. So this is a great quote from Frank Rhodes. Don't read the quote, read the white parts. Knowledge has become the prime mover. Knowledge is autocatalytic, growing in scope. Alan Wilson, again, we live in the center of a knowledge explosion. We are human beings living in a moment where everything that we can conceive of, all ways that we think of, all ways that we think are being influenced by the fact of our learning, our understanding, our conceptualizing, our rethinking things. Along the way, by the way, we're wounding ourselves every day by not grasping this and understanding this. We're wounding ourselves every day by not fully grasping and fully understanding that we're infants in terms of what we know. We're unbelievable in terms of what we can know. We've set up social constructs that limit our learning. We've made subjects that shouldn't be difficult, like math and science. We have demonized so many subjects through our own social constructs that every single thing that we're encountering, through every limit that we're encountering, every kid that's supposedly not able to study this or understand this, that's all a social construct. That's all a social construct. Those are all our own self-made failures. There's no reason, Sandy Sugart said it last night in a great speech that he gave, there's no reason that any human being cannot learn anything. There are some occasional exceptions because of a mechanical or biological issue, but any human being can learn anything. So, knowledge is not static. You all get this. This just makes the point that what we used to think of as knowledge 100 years ago, 75 years ago, nanotechnology is doubling its understanding of nature every 2 years. Clinical knowledge is changing every 18 months. Basic human knowledge is doubling every 13 months. The Internet of Things is doubling every 12 hours. What does that mean? Knowledge is not static. Now, there was a building I was in a few years ago that really visually affected me. The glass on the left side of the slide, this is the center cube of the British Library, and in that is every book that existed that could be acquired at the time, certainly everything in the English language and other languages, around 1750 is in this glass cube in the British Library. That was the entire extent of written, repeatable, discoverable knowledge, all in one cube in one building. That was just a couple hundred years ago. Every single thing about us, every single thing about knowledge, every single thing about what we need to try to do has changed, and changed dramatically. Now you're going to have a weird experience now. So I asked some scientists to take real data, no images, real pictures, and I just want to show you a little bit about what we know. Nothing that I'm about to show you could have been shown with the exacting data that we're about to show. So let's run the video. You're going to come in on, this is all from our astronomers. We're moving in on our planet. It's just all of the star fields. This is the solar system. I'm trying to make a point here. We barely even have an understanding of this, but we do now at exponential rates of understanding. That's our solar system now in the distance. Now we're moving out at 1 trillion times the speed of light. We're going to accelerate. This is our position in this particular galaxy. Moving away from our galaxy, moving further, further, further. The closest galaxy, Andromeda strain, will appear in just a second. There it comes on the right. This is actual images. There's 1 trillion stars in Andromeda strain, in Andromeda. Moving out further, further, further. Every object you see in the field right now is a galaxy. These are only galaxies. These are actual images drawn from the Hubble Space Telescope by teams at ASU and others. This is all driven from our School for Earth and Space Exploration. Now we're moving back. We can stop the video. Move to the next slide. So the point here, I want to go back to the one slide. The point here on that imagery and that data, the reason I had that data put together is I just called some people up and I said I'd like to see data on the actual imagery of the near galaxies to our galaxy. I'd like it all to be real, all completely physically based. All of this is now understood. None of that could have been done within even my lifetime. So the reason for asking that video to be put together is to demonstrate what can be done on an instant notice right now with a group of students sitting inside some lab at a university, at the university level. So this notion that somehow knowledge itself isn't at the heart or isn't at the core, or that we have some understanding of what we're doing really isn't the case. I need to go back one slide. It's not letting me do that. So we'll move on. So the point here is that the evolutionary process of our understanding of how knowledge is created, how knowledge advances, is essential, and we've made a fundamentally fatal error in not fully grasping or fully understanding that as the centerpiece of everything that we do. Now, what's happened then along the way is that different types of educational institutions have evolved. Different types of educational institutions have evolved that have allowed us, here's a little bit on education as an innovation anomaly. So we'll just take this. So on the bottom of the slide, think of it as you're moving from either existing users, that is existing learners, to new users, and then existing offerings to new offerings. And there are 4 types of evolutionary activity or revolutionary activity, 4 types of innovations that can occur: disruptive, basic, perpetual, and breakthrough. We have put immense amounts of energy on finding new learners. We've put immense amounts of energy on finding new offerings. What we haven't done is found enough to do new offerings to new learners. And so it is an innovation anomaly overall. Now, you've seen this idea in the past. So there have been several waves of change in American higher education. All of them still exist. Greek academies, public colleges, land grants, American research universities, they've all fed off of each other. They all still exist. Wave 1, the Greek academies, we've talked about this before. You can see the types of them: private historical, private modern, a new evolutionary form. I've actually added Olin College here. Even though it doesn't teach a classic liberal arts curriculum, it does have a particular way in which it's advancing things. The second wave, different types of schools that were evolving. All of these forms still exist. All of them are still evolving. All of them are their own evolutionary force. The land grants that emerged, the research universities that emerged. The point here is not the detail. You can get the detail in the actual presentation. The point here is that every single one of these evolutionary forms still exists, is still evolving. Wave 4, Prototypes, Johns Hopkins, Stanford, University of Chicago. Type B, classics, Columbia, Harvard. Type C, institutions that grew into being research universities. University of Wisconsin, Penn State, University of Illinois. A new form, a regional college, Boston University, that became a research university. It's sort of a new form moving along. Now here's some news for those of you that have been tracking the Purdue University Kaplan deal. Wave 5 is the emergence of national service universities, what I call scalable, social scale, highly adaptable, high-speed, changeable institutions. Arizona State University happens to be one of those. Type A, the new American university, you can see the characteristics. Adaptive knowledge creation is at the core of the university. Complex, adaptable, and scalable. Scalable to social scale. Scalable to social speed. Now here's the point that everybody doesn't realize. The previous forms, this is not meant to replace them, it's meant to augment them. I'm going to come to the heart of the matter now in a second when we start talking about innovation, but I've added a new second evolutionary form for a national service university, and that's Purdue University. Mitch Daniels decided that the old land-grant mission, find the sons and daughters of farmers and mechanics and educate them, advance society as a whole, improve the success of who we are as a society overall, and have some colleges and universities that are devoted just to that. And so he has decided to now build what I'm calling a national service land-grant university, a national scale land-grant university, a national land-grant university. So a second form of a Wave 5 national service university. It turns out there is, as we speak, a sixth wave, which is underway. We don't have any actual emergence yet, but these are the global research universities, institutions that are heavily involved with no boundary whatsoever, no constraints whatsoever. They're operating on a global scale. MIT, I think, is probably the furthest along in this, operating with their educational platforms, their teaching platforms, the science initiatives that they're driving, and so forth. So, to the heart of the matter now, if you go back to the original point, knowledge is the driver. You think of knowledge as the core. You think that, in a sense, it's a function of the fact that people have not found a way, largely in the for-profit university sector, in my view, there are some exceptions, to accept this fact, that there is a sanctity of this knowledge, that there is a value of this knowledge, there's a purpose of this knowledge. And so from this knowledge core, we believe now that there's teaching and learning going on in different realms. The realm 1 is like this, face-to-face, with each other, full immersion. That's what we call realm 1. Here's the innovations that are needed for realm 1. Face-to-face, full immersion at college, all of the existing waves of colleges, all the types of colleges, all the types of universities. 21st century digital learning spaces. We're still basically 18th century platforms with some exceptions. Artificial intelligence-based advising, ubiquitous content delivery, intelligent tutoring platforms, personalized learning at scale, math and science mastery for all. Math and science mastery for all. And when I mean science, I mean engineering, technology, thinking, the ways of understanding how the world actually works. The second realm that we have is digital immersion online, technology enhanced. This is where you're going to college online, you're interacting with people in a digital format, you're digitally immersed completely. Lifelong learning, as it progresses, will have many, many millions of people engaged in this type of learning. We already have at ASU 25,000 degree-seeking students in this particular realm. Needed innovations, technology to support human relationships and build organizational affinity. How do you connect human beings in technologically based learning environments? How do you do real-time assessment? How do you have integrated human-tutor interfaces? How do you have human touch and high technology at the same time? Anyone that approaches things just from the perspective, oh, send the kid to the basement, on the computer, and somehow they're going to become an understanding, learning, capable, knowledge-inspired individual, that's just not going to happen. Development-based assessment, and I'm going to add math and science mastery for all. The third realm, digital immersion, massively open, technology enhanced. This is the area where the MOOCs have sat for a while. This is an area where our Global Freshman Academy, which is off to a great start, fantastic new experiences that we're having in our math courses, fantastic ways in which we're able to interact with people. We've got hundreds of thousands of people that are engaging with us through this particular category, just with us in one institution. What do we need? We need technologies that derive value from scale. No one's ready for this. No one's producing these kinds of things yet. Content and delivery for any life stage. We've got to break down the model, move past the model that learning is a process that's best accomplished by children, that it's not a lifelong process, that it's not a process that we'll constantly need throughout one's entire life. And so we just don't have that. We need a multi-organizational pathway mapping. What I mean by that is right now it's too hard for people to find pathways to educational opportunity. It's too hard to move back and forth between job and training and job and this and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Those things don't exist. And once again, math and science mastery for all. I get a lot of pushback when I push math and science mastery for all. They say, oh, every kid doesn't need to know this and every kid doesn't need to know that. Those people are just fundamentally wrong. They're basically perpetuating a falsehood. They're perpetuating a lack of fundamental understanding about human beings, how human beings learn, and they have no understanding how badly we have wounded ourselves by basically saying that some humans can learn this and some humans can learn that, and others can't learn this and can't learn that. We still live in a system where we're still classifying people based on what we believe to be their ability, as opposed to enabling somehow their potential. It's a distorted, warped system in a lot of ways. There's a fourth realm, what we call it education through exploration, technology enhanced. This can be game-based learning, deep game-based learning, learning in different ways, learning by using human nature. This is an area where we have a number of projects underway where we're using science and other mechanisms to enhance ways of learning. So what do we need there? Virtual augmented reality for learning, direct human cognition linkages. I put that in, seeing if anyone would laugh when I put that in. One person. Intelligent tutoring through verbal query. So we're building a residence hall for 1,600 or 1,700 engineering freshmen. It opens in August. Just take that. 1,600 to 1,700 engineering freshmen at ASU. That's not the size of our freshman class. We've grown engineering. I'm just going to give a little sidebar to let you know how, if you do innovations and you start thinking in different ways and you start thinking like this in different ways. So people say we needed more engineering majors, we need more women in engineering, we need more minority students in engineering. So a few years ago, we eliminated all of our engineering departments, all 11 of them. We created a grand challenge-oriented engineering school. At the time that we did that, we had 8,500 students in engineering. We had a 68% freshman retention rate. This fall, we'll have 17,000 on-campus engineering students. We have a 90% freshman retention rate. We've got thousands and thousands and thousands of engineers coming in from everywhere. You begin your first semester, you are an engineer. You don't become an engineer, you are an engineer. You start building immediately, you start designing immediately. And now we've built this residence hall for 1,600 or 1,700 of these kids where they're going to be living with maker centers built in with them, with 3D printers spread throughout these complexes, inventing, building, discovering, not while they're in class, not for their class, but as a part of what they're doing. So this is this whole new way of thinking about doing things. And so in this facility then, we're going to have an intelligent tutoring system through verbal query, interacting with one of our partners. And this intelligent tutoring system will be ubiquitous throughout the building. And it'll be completely built around their learning experiences and their curriculum. They'll just ask a question. If they need an answer, they can bring in data. They can bring in background. They can interact back and forth related to their courses, related to macro materials, related to this, related to that. And so it's all going to be built into the facility itself. Now imagine if you had that as a part of this broader learning environment. So you're in this game-based learning environment and there's always this intelligent, verbally cued tutor that you can ask a question, ask a question, ask a question, ask a question. Millions and millions and millions and millions of questions then become capable of being predictable. Once you have the ability to predict the questions, now you're moving into an interactive learning mode. And so these are the kinds of things that we need to be able to change learning. Group learning tools. So if you have 1 million people playing a game, how can you learn together? And then lastly, math and science for all. Realm 5 is this gray shaded area, what we call infinitely scalable learning. I don't really know exactly what this will be made up of. All I know is that the technological platforms don't exist. They can be conceptualized. You can imagine what they might be, but just think about that as it's recognition that there's a lot more to do. Now, needed innovations in Realm 5, infinitely scalable learning, lifelong intelligent tutoring. Why can't you have, I'm going to pick this one. Why can't you have your tutor that understands you? So 20 years ago, Neil Stephenson conceptualized one of these things when he came up with the idea of in the Diamond Age book, the young lady's primer. This was a device that was with the person through their life. Oh, I remember when you were 5 and we worked on this, and you worked on this, and you worked on this. And this notion of personalizing everything, personalizing learning, working across the span of a person's life. Now, right now, you're saying, this guy's crazy. Like, I got out of bed for this? This guy's crazy. We actually have about 150 students working on one of these with some of our computer science faculty members, just to see how far we can take it as a design idea. And so the point here is that is really 2 points up to this point of the conversation. One point is these things that we call colleges and universities, they're not going away. They're not going to be disrupted. They're going to be impacted. They desperately need innovations. There's new types of institutions that are coming along, like the national service universities that I mentioned. These are the kinds of innovations that are needed. These are unbelievable market opportunities. These are unbelievable economic opportunities to advance these kinds of things, and they're really fantastic. I just put together a slide that summarizes all these things together. This is not a comprehensive list, but it's a technological challenge list. There's probably 1,000 companies or 5,000 companies that could emerge or are emerging or have emerged from each of these spaces. And so these are the innovations that are needed. So this notion of finding ways to accept higher education institutions and think about how they might innovate, and then understand that new forms will come along, new waves will come along. Those are basically the points of the conversation. Now, very quickly, just a little bit about ASU. 30 seconds. We've got 3 times the number of graduates that we had in 2003, with about 5 times the diversity that we had in 2003. Our graduating class of undergraduates is representative of the entire socioeconomic diversity of our region. That is a very difficult thing to achieve. We have about 8 times the number of learners that we had. That is someone taking at least one course from us. We have 5 times the level of research and 85% improvement in our 4-year graduation rate. I won't walk you through all of that. Our research activity right now, this year, when the year ends June 30th, our fiscal year, will be just under $560 million. That's more funded research outside of medicine than Columbia, Princeton, Harvard, Stanford, USC, Caltech, any of those schools. All inside a student body population, all matched together, all driven by these kinds of innovations, which have then allowed us to then emerge as a prototype, as an exemplar, as a first mover in this national service university modality. So things have been going well, challenging, but well overall. So, perpetual innovation, build from the clusters that already exist, facilitate the emergence of new types of institutions. I think the Purdue-Kaplan deal is an interesting merger of forces and ideas and things that are coming together to help then allow for a new type of university to also emerge. And then this notion of the innovations that we actually need. So, now I have 2 parts today, so that's the end of part 1. I have to say one other thing. I've got about 40 seconds. Monday night I was in Phoenix. I have really bad bronchitis that I think is, according to my body, I think it's turning into malaria. And so we had Howard Schultz. We gave him an honorary degree on Monday in Phoenix. But Monday afternoon we met with 800 Starbucks partners in a meeting, a town hall meeting. And several of us that were there, Phil Regier was there, several of us were there. It was a very unbelievably moving experience. We have 7,000 Starbucks partners in college with us. You all know there's 35 million people that never finished college, that started college in the United States. It's a very emotional thing for a lot of people. And so we had, I don't know, there must have been 50 stories that were told in a very long session where person after person after person, all of whom are students at ASU, they were not all from Arizona. They were from Colorado, California, New Jersey, all over the country. They'd flown in for this town hall meeting. It was unbelievably emotional to hear their experiences. Kids that had gone to college on national merit scholarships and flunked out. Kids that had had something happen. Their parents had died, and or their parents had gotten sick and they'd gone home and couldn't come back. And then because they had left the semester in the middle of the semester and they didn't sign out in the right way because of the trauma in their family, they got Fs in all their grades. They were not readmittable to their school. And so there was story after story. Tears were being shed. The parents were crying. The emotionality associated with not finding ways to help students to reach educational goals, to advance themselves, is beyond belief. And so there was a great video that was taken during this event. If you saw this video, you would understand that there's this issue about college completion. And so it was just a tremendous event. I just want to pass on this tremendous event.